Hey, everybody, it's Brendon here, and we're going to continue with part 2 in our series on identity and value. This is a continuation of last week's episode, so if you haven't heard last week's, go back, download part 1 of your identity and value. Some absolutely amazing discussion there, and continuing that discussion in this one. So some fantastic foundational stuff that I'm positive there are people out there who need to hear it. So go grab part 1, and listen here to part 2 of your identity and value on the Woven podcast. Thanks so much. I kind of want to talk about some of the tools around value and identity.
Okay.
I think there's some good ones about seeing value in yourself. I already kind of hinted at one, that what I called the healed dreaming exercise. It's especially good when I think people are having a hard time seeing good in themselves, or maybe they're stuck in like this really tough spot, but have at least enough, knowledge of identity to say, my true self would probably look more like this over here, but right now I'm just not feeling it. And just to kind of recap it, because I glossed over it kind of quickly in my telling that story, being able to lead someone through a process of asking questions like, again, if all the wounds in your life were healed, if everything that needs reconciliation was reconciled, what would life then be like for you? And then kind of asking questions about specific areas. In your relationship, if you're in one, if you're a career, if you're a parent, what those relationships would look like.
Yeah.
But the real power, it's one thing for the person to do that themselves, because you could write these things down and not believe them. But then for us as coaches to say back to that person that they are that, is a powerful thing. So a good example that my coach gave me, if I were fully healed and, reconciled, like I definitely would feel a lot more peace. I would feel more alive in life. And then for me to look at that person and say, you are a person who has peace inside of you and you are coming alive more and more every day. Like to go, whoa, to hear that is so powerful. So powerful. That's one of my favorite, but it really does take, the magic comes from the guidance of a coach or the guidance of a trusted advisor or someone you love, to take those things and read them back to you as though they are true.
Right.
It's so powerful. And like you said, I teared up plenty when Matt did that to me.
And I'm assuming in your coaching relationship, you guys had been together for quite a while before this, because I would think this person that can speak that truth back to you has to be trusted.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. And that, it kind of goes back to one of the two ways that we can get disassociated with our true identity. And I said sometimes it's just subversive and passive and very subtle, like the worries of life, but other times it's traumatic, and comes from things that were said or not said or done or not done that really ingrained that false sense of identity in us. A lot of that identity building comes when we're young, and it's things, and this is another exercise, things we should have heard when we were younger, things we should have been told were true about us, how we should have been treated when we were younger. So one of those process is called reparenting. And you and I got to do this. We talked about the things that young Jennie needed to hear. And it was a powerful story you told, and it's your story to tell, so I won't disrespect that. But this beautiful situation where you got to talk to or write to like 11-year-old version of yourself and tell her the things that she should have heard and been told in that moment, and how that starts to slowly heal those things, even though the person responsible for it couldn't or didn't say those things. We were able to get back in there and say, hey, this is what's really true. Go back and say these things to 11-year-old Jennie.
Right.
And how powerful that can be.
Yeah. You know, I remember that well, and I remember I've been in, therapy, counseling, most of my adult life, and because I feel that like you, I think we all need someone ahead of us on the journey, and someone able to see the qualities and things in ourselves that we don't see yet, and who has some skills about leading us to those answers.
Yeah. Yep.
And this may sound strange, but I'm going to share it because I don't know if I told you this story about one of my counselors that was so impactful in my life. We kind of went through the process, honestly, of like as if I were born again. And what I mean by that is like I really trusted her, but it was a time where she literally wrapped me in a blanket and held me and said the things that a mother would say to a baby. And if I would have walked into her office that day and she's like, okay, today we're going to do this really weird exercise, I would have been like, I'm out. I am out. But I was so hurting and so desperate. And I just kind of was like, okay, let's go along with this. But I cannot tell you how often that memory comes back to my brain of Shelley was so glad to have me be born. I wasn't born out of trying to fix a broken marriage or I don't know, right? I was just received with love. And I remember she's like, she's perfect. She's everything we wanted. And it was just this incredible wash of I got to hear what should have, could have been said the moment I was born. I'm sure that sounds strange to many people, but it was just a healing exercise.
I think, and I'm tearing up for those who are just listening and not watching, I don't think that'll sound strange to many people. I think people need to go back, just rewind, 10, 15 seconds, and listen to that again as though it's being said to you, the listener. You are perfect. Perfect. What was the second part of that?
Everything we wanted. She's like this.
Everything.
She's everything we wanted.
Who doesn't need to hear that?
Right.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
You are perfect and everything we wanted. I truly feel, as we're recording this now, as this is being listened to sometime in the future, Jennie, I think we need to just pause for a couple seconds and give the listener space.
Okay.
They need to sit with this. You are perfect. That's so good. Thank you so much, Jennie. Wow.
Yeah.
What a great share.
Of course. Well, I was offered that beautiful opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like Matt offered you reading back your
Mm-hmm.
whole healed self.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I got major chicken skin. This is good.
You're one of the only people I know that says chicken skin. I always say goosebumps.
Yeah, I always say goosebumps too. I don't know where I heard chicken skin and when I started to say it, but growing up I said goosebumps.
Okay.
But now I say chicken skin for some reason. I don't know why. I won't be able to sleep tonight because I'm going to try to figure out when did I start saying chicken skin. That is so good. That is so good. That's a great example of, and probably an incredibly tender example of reparenting, because there was a physical aspect to that too, Jennie, right? And you're right, that takes someone that you trust, that you value, that you feel safe with.
Yeah.
Not just anybody could or should do that.
Right.
Not
Trained
close.
professional who
Yes.
knew when I was ready to receive that. It had been,
That's
I bet
it.
I had, probably been about 9 to 12 months talking before I was able to receive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Gosh. It's hard to want to move on from that. That's how powerful that is. It's hard
I'm really, I feel good that I shared, because I've shared that experience with a couple other people I trust. And my first reaction is people probably think I'm cuckoo wacky. That I don't know that was powerful, and that I couldn't have told you I wanted or needed that, but that's what I wanted and needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good. So good. So I am going to be daring and transition on from that one.
Okay.
This is a saying that I like, and I've said it to a number of people, and maybe even you too at one point. You won't fight for what you don't value. Or sometimes I say it is like you're fighting for your own limitations. Once we begin to value ourselves the way we should, in accordance with our true identity, then we will start to fight for those things that align with that. We won't settle for, anything different. If we beat ourselves up a lot, this is something that might be called out. Someone who is self-sacrificial to a fault. They're always worried about other people and helping everybody else out, but they won't hurt themselves sometimes, or help themselves. Sometimes that's an overcompensation because you don't value yourself. You won't help yourself. So you overcompensate for helping as many other people as possible. And the tricky part about that is, on the surface, that looks grand, doesn't it? Looks selfless and altruistic. But driving that is a lack of self-value.
And I would take that a step further. Someone who's sacrificial to the point of neglecting themselves. I think it becomes and I can speak on my own behalf in my own life, it becomes a way of not looking at yourself.
Yeah.
It's like the busier I stay and the more focused I stay on other people means I don't need to focus on myself. And focusing on yourself is very scary. So if I can just continue to give and expend and actually physically give myself to them, I'm so tired that then I have nothing left for myself. I stay in that comfort, even though it doesn't feel comfortable. It's comfortable to me because looking at my identity or looking at, do I think I'm valuable, is much more painful. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true.
Yeah. So I have just known that in my own life.
Yeah. What a clever way to hide, because a lot of times, again, on the surface, that could look like you're such a great, helpful person, always looking out for other people, but never have to face the fact that you're hurting.
Or that you need attention too.
Yeah. Yep. I think we see this a lot. I think we've seen this in, tell me if you have different experiences, but even just in like the health and nutrition space, we see people neglect, and I'll put health over that whole thing, right? We see a lot of people neglect their physical health because they're so busy caring for and helping other people.
Right.
And I think the irony to that is, if you were to pay even a little bit of attention and care to your physical health, you'd be able to help people better and more. but because they're afraid to come face to face with themselves and work through that, you know, they won't do it.
Yeah.
They won't take care.
Exactly.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I want to work towards, though,
Okay.
when it comes to value in myself. I want to come to a place of humble confidence. And I owe this all to my coach, Matt. And anytime I can attribute something, I will, if I know the original source.
Right.
I will say Matt a lot. Because this is something he's definitely encouraged in me that I'm having a hard time with. Humble and confident seem like they should be opposites, right? They should be opposed to each other. Either you're humble or you're confident. But Matt tells a great story otherwise. Usually because I was brought up in, incorrect. I was not brought up in. When I became a Christian, I went to a couple churches that were very, very, very reformed in their theology. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
And what that means is one aspect of that is total depravity of humankind. I am completely and utterly helpless and bad. At least that's how they would teach it. And apart from God, I am not capable of anything remotely good.
Yes.
That can get interpreted as I sit here right now, I am just bad. And for a long time, I believe that was the correct way to think of myself. I thought that was humility.
Right.
And anytime someone would congratulate you on a job, they'd be like, oh, it wasn't me. It was all God, all glory to God.
I did that too.
Right?
Yeah.
And yes, that is true. You want to be that way. But also at the same time, you know what, Brendon? Good job. You know what? Thanks.
I did
I
work
did
hard.
do okay. I did work, exactly. I did use my talents on that one. I did work hard on that one. Thank you. Balancing humility, which is really nothing more than just thinking correctly about yourself, right? It doesn't mean you're a doormat. And being able to be a little bit confident. Matt goes as far as to say, if you're going to err, I'd rather you err on the side of confidence than humility. Because humility will just humility in that sense of, I am bad, just takes me back to a place of devaluing myself, not honoring the value that's inside of me.
Yeah.
I'm working on that so much.
Okay.
So much. It's difficult.
Yeah. You need to have the humble confidence exist together.
Yes. Yes. I'll even take it a step further. It's saying it's difficult to be confident.
Okay.
Because along with that, like depravity, like any show of pride is considered bad. Any at all. And we're supposed to like avoid it. But somewhere in the middle, like, yeah, I did work hard. I should be proud of that. I did do a good job. Those are okay to think. Those are good and healthy ways to think. As long as you still have that humility in there. Just not that false humility.
Yeah.
That's my goal when it comes to valuing myself.
Okay. I thought of an instance, again, I've been in many counseling offices. And when I was married, I was in marriage counseling, which is awesome. And one of the terms that our counselor taught us was, it sounds so fancy. He said it was called, and you might have heard of this, tolerance for ambiguity.
Yeah.
So I was like, what? And he gave this example. Like he had gotten in a fight, disagreement with his wife. Nothing crazy, but they were kind of really irritated with each other. And he's like, I really didn't even want to see her. I didn't want to be in the same room with her. I get that, right? That happens with any relationship. And he's like, so I was so irritated with her. And he said, in that moment, if someone had walked into our home and tried to harm her, I would have put my life in front of hers. Okay.
Yep.
He's like, those two things, he called it tolerance for ambiguity. So the opposite thoughts. I don't even want to see this person or be in the same room with me. But yet, if they were going to be hurt, I would do all to protect them. That those two things can exist. And he said, the healthier mentally you were, the more you were able to allow those things to coexist and be okay with the tolerance of ambiguity in those feelings.
Yes.
It was a really good example. And so
I love that.
Yeah. So sometimes I think when I just had a client this morning and she was really scared and mad, but she was also feeling independent at the same time. And I said, do you know it's okay to feel those two things together? And she didn't. She's like, well, I think I have to either be scared or mad, or I have to be real like badass and independent. I was like, no, they can actually coexist.
Yeah.
So that to me is your humble confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good call out. That specific example of your client, that is such a good call out, because like a lot of this, toxic positivity that's come out of really the good work that's been done in positive psychology, but that toxic positivity takes it to such a poor extreme that you can't have those feelings of being scared or uncertain.
Yeah, or sad.
Yeah. And so that's, probably common, just like your client, like, I can't, these two things cannot coexist. I should probably just try my best to feel badass and try not to feel that other way, when in fact they always, or can always, or should always coexist. Ooh, there is, I think, did we discuss it? I'll say it again. Doesn't matter. A really good book by Thich, Nhat, Hanh called No Mud, No Lotus.
I think you might have mentioned this. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it so much.
Yeah.
It just talks about the role of suffering and sadness in creating beauty and power in our life. They almost have to cohabitate. These not so good feelings, I'm doing air quotes for people who aren't watching, these not so good feelings with these good feelings. Because like you said earlier, so truthfully, like, feelings aren't bad or good. They're feelings, right? Yeah, that's such a good call. That's such a good call. I like that.
Humble and confident. I like that too.
Scared and badass. I like that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We could talk. I mean, we could probably just have a whole podcast, like 3 seasons worth, just on these topics. But I think it was really, really good for us to bring this up so early in our podcast, because even though we had a great discussion on lifestyle design and all the things that go into it, if we don't understand our true identity, and if we can't value ourselves, it won't make any difference how much effort or money or resources we might want to spend on our nutrition, how we move, where we belong, what community we belong to, how our mental and spiritual and physical or emotional health are going, what our spiritual life is like. It won't matter the effort and resources we put into that if we're constantly being sabotaged or tied down by an incorrect identity and a poor value of ourselves. Those things have to be addressed before any of those, I think we identified 5, before any of those 5 areas of your life can be addressed and refined. It's like, what do they call it? Straightening the chairs in the Titanic. It's like, yeah, those chairs look great, but they'll be at the bottom of the ocean soon, right? A fresh coat of paint on a house that's about to be demolished.
Yeah. Okay.
Doing at least being willing to put in the work on identity and value means that when you put in work to how you eat, how you move, where you belong, how you think, and what you believe, putting in that work in those areas will then make those efforts fruitful.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's got to be a part of it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And I feel like we maybe are coming to the end of this. I'm assuming.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way. Sure. Yeah.
We don't have a plan.
Right.
This is my personality because I'm like, oh, this is so good. Like if I was listening, like, yeah, got it. But then I'd be like, now tell me how to do that. Like, tell me how to get the proper identity. Tell me how to value myself. And so I want to make sure people who are listening can, and maybe this is our next podcast, like steps to maybe finding a coach or steps to, finding that community that's going to support who so I don't want to give this incredible valuable information to people without maybe something practical as well. And you and I have not talked about this at all because like we say, we just press record.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's something we need to research and we could come back and begin with or have another little podcast about.
Yep. That's a great call. I love that. I wrote that down because, we have a little list of ideas of things we want to talk about, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. We might do, on our own, we do a little bit of research, so we're prepared to talk about it, but we don't, we want this to be as real and authentic as possible. Yeah, that's good. And I don't want to give the really, really simple answer like, hey, Jennie and I are coaches.
Okay.
Because to your point in your story earlier, the right coaching relationship is so important.
It is.
Right? Because if you had even just a lukewarm coaching relationship, there's no way you could have been swaddled up and told you were perfect in everything that they ever wanted if it was the wrong coaching relationship.
Agreed.
Never would have happened.
Yeah.
Never would have happened.
I think, again, I did not realize how much I've been in like therapy. One of the counselors that I met with when I was early young, and I knew I did not feel right in my heart. And so I just started finding people to help me. I remember distinctly, I sat down with this lady and she's like, she's like, finding the right counselor or the coach or whatever is like trying on shoes. She's like, you put on a pair and it doesn't really fit like you thought. It doesn't look the way you thought. And she's like, so there is no offense if after we talk today, you do not want to continue. So I say that to encourage people when you're searching for someone to help you. It may not be the right fit at first, and that's okay, and that's totally normal. And I didn't feel comfortable with her, and I felt comfortable enough at the end of the session to say, I don't think that I want to continue. And she's like, that's perfectly fine, right?
Yep. And
I think one of the ways I coach and you coach, and this isn't a plug, is I like to talk to somebody for 20 to 30 minutes, quote unquote, free, to see if it feels like a good fit or to see if our goals could align. And so I say that in an encouraging way, that may take some effort, but it's well worth it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I was going to say the same thing. That's why when someone comes to me prospectively, like the first real quick conversation, like 10, 15 minutes, just to like do a high level overview. But then my next actual coaching call with them is free. So they could see how I coach if we're a fit. Because you're right. If it's not a fit, it's going to obviously do the client a disservice, but it'll do us as a coach a disservice as well.
Yeah.
Because now we're coaching with someone where the relationship isn't there. Our coaching will be a little less effective. That'll cause a little bit of stress on us. And most importantly, maybe it'll take up space in our life that instead could be occupied by the right client for us.
Right.
So it's not... So yeah, there's a third person that it's not fair for. It's not fair for you.
True.
It's not fair for me. It's not fair for that other client out there that has yet to find us because we don't have that space.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I totally agree. you have to try them on.
Mm-hmm.
You have to try a coach on. You do.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah. So maybe, I don't know, in the next episode, we could have some other practical ideas to find help.
Oh, no, I think that's wonderful.
Okay.
It's wonderful. And then let's talk a little bit more about those, start to dig in a little more about those 5 areas of kind of lifestyle design that we identified, and start helping people along those lines as well.
Yeah.
I think that would be really actionable.
I agree.
You just listened in on our planning session. This is exactly how we do it.
We brainstorm together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. This is just what I needed. Oh, look at that. We're coming right up on the hour mark. I might even split this into 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Okay.
But, yeah. Well, thank you all out there for listening. This was super duper powerful. Way more powerful than if we tried to manipulate and script it. I think there are some super powerful moments in this. So thank you all for listening. Jennie, thank you so much for your vulnerability and sharing. Like, what power it brought to this.
Oh, good.
So good.
My pleasure. It is.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.